Hi everybody, welcome to this channel. I just wanted to take a quick break from ego death, which is what I'm still working on. More videos to come very soon. But I meant to make this video like over a year ago, and I got caught up with projects, and this has been long overdue. This is an ode to my great-grandfather. Unfortunately, he has passed away, November 2nd, 2004. I met him when I was very young, like 2 years old. There's a picture of him holding me, and I don't remember it, so, I don't really remember him, but he was a very important figure in, my family. Richard Henry Maresh, also known as Dick, was born September 8th, 1917, and died on November 2nd, 2004. He was elected to legislature in 1970 and served as senator of the 32nd Nebraska Legislative District from 1971 through 1981. During his first term, Senator Maresh served as the chairman of the Labor Committee and was later elected to serve as chairman of the Joint Business and Labor Committee. Maresh was also appointed deputy director of the Nebraska Department of Agriculture and served as a Nebraska State Fair board member for 25 years. Also served as a member of the Southeast Community College Board for 13 years. And this is rural Nebraska. So I know, it's community college, but he really did do a lot for that area. A lot of people will remember his efforts, to improve agriculture. Nebraska's basic industry that he loved so well and knew so well, states former Nebraska Governor and Congressman Charles Stone in a 2004 interview with Lincoln Journal-Star. Maresh will be remembered for working to improve rural healthcare, home healthcare, and transportation for senior citizens, also education at all levels. Maresh also established a new soybean research program and supported small banks and businesses. A personal motto of his was honesty in government. Maresh also authored an autobiography titled Memories of World War II, dedicated to his daughters and family. And I'm going to read you a little bit of it. It's very heart-wrenching. It's a reminder of why we shouldn't go to war. War is terrible. I was reading his, autobiography, and it's jarring. It hits close to home when you're reading about someone you're related to, and all of this happened, and it's like, wow. Dick was born in Milligan, Nebraska, and that's a very small town in Nebraska, to Joseph Sr., who's a farmer, and Anna Betka Maresh, who I believe was also, daughter of a farmer. I'll have to check with my grandma on that. Maresh graduated from Milligan High School in 1935 and enlisted in the U.S. Army Air Corps in 1942, flying on B-29 bombers as an officer until the end of World War II in 1945. He was exposed to radiation as he was flying over Hiroshima, which may have led to his health complications. Maresh was awarded the Air Medal with 3 oak leaf clusters for meritorious achievement with the 20th Air Force in the Marianas upon his return to the U.S. Richard Henry Maresh married Ruth Sweeney Maresh on May 24th, 1942, and the couple had 3 daughters, who are my grandma's, my grandma and her sisters. After returning from World War II, Maresh bought farmland in the Milligan, Nebraska area and worked in the Agricultural Stabilization and Conservation Service. And Senator Richard Maresh was elected to legislature in 1970 to represent the 32nd District of Nebraska, serving 2 terms, working from 1971 through 1981. In January 1776, Richard Maresh introduced to the Nebraska legislature Bill LB 828, which would allow the Nebraska Educational Television Commission to broadcast closed-circuit transmission of sold-out Nebraska University home football games. In response to the low rate of pay to doctors in the rural Nebraska area, Senator Maresh proposed a constitutional amendment to the 1977 legislature which would secure special advantages to doctors that practice in rural areas with known doctor shortages. Maresh pointed out that there existed an adequate number of doctors in Nebraska, but the doctors were not equally distributed throughout the region. Maresh hoped that the issue would be important enough to be placed on the ballot. And he also worked to pass Bill LB 778, securing cancer patients and doctors freedom to choose which cancer treatments to use and prescribe. In 1981, Governor Charles Thone appointed Maresh as deputy director of the Nebraska Department of Agriculture. When Thone lost his re-election bid for governor in 1983, Maresh also lost his appointed position. However, Maresh stayed active in the Nebraska community after leaving the legislature. He served on the board of the Nebraska State Fair for 25 years and also served as a representative of the Southeast Community College Board for 13 years. Survivors include his wife, Ruth Maresh, now deceased, and daughters Dixie, Janet, and Sherry. And, he really did a lot for Nebraska. Nebraska is, one of the forgotten states, I feel, in America. I don't live in Nebraska, but, I've gone there many times, and what is there? Corn? We wouldn't have food if it weren't for the Midwest farmers. We need to support these Midwest farmers because this is where we get our sustenance from, and my great-grandfather is truly an inspiration to me in just the amount of work he did for the community at large in rural Nebraska. And I'm going to read a little bit of his autobiography to you right now, titled Memories of World War II, and this is before he was elected to legislature. He was the third of 4 sons born in 1917 into a 3-generation home to parents that truly appreciated the freedom of America. Grandma Anna came when she was 13 and Grandpa Joseph when he was 4 from Czechoslovakia. Deep feelings of honesty, respect, and hard work were instilled at an early age. The value of education was taught at home. The love of music, as shown by all the children having musical instruments, with Dad playing the baritone at age 8, and was soon in a small band. He was the youngest of the Sweeney clan, born in 1924, with a sister and brother nearly 22 years and 19 years older, another sister 2 years older. The very memorable day for us was December 7th, 1941, when Japan made the surprise attack on Pearl Harbor. Our world was suddenly turned upside down, as it was for most of the world. His dad decided to volunteer for the Air Force, being inducted January 1st, 1942. The pay was $21 per month. After high school graduation, he joined him at Wichita Falls. Reading this, is kind of hard for me. I might stumble over some words and might have to backtrack a bit, but I'm gonna get through it, and I'm gonna read to you his perspective, so stick around for that. December 27th, 1944. We said goodbye at the Kearney Air Base, and Dick and his B-29 crew flew west. What a sad day, not knowing what the next few months might bring. The following are excerpts from letters sent from Tinian, Marianas Islands, where Dick was stationed while making 35 missions over Japan before the war ended. Since letters would be censored, our code was that when we were going on a mission, the letters would be signed Oceans of Love. December 28th, 1944. Letter from Matherfield, California, giving the overseas address. Sergeant Richard Marsh, 484 Bomb Squad, 305th Bomb Group, APO 247, San Francisco, California. Next word was from the Hawaiian Islands, where the plane was refueled. January 3rd, 1945. I've reached my destination, living in tents. I can't say my exact location, but can say I'm on one of the Marianas. The island isn't completely captured from the Japanese and still has censored. The caves are full of them and are still hunted down. We go around ready to shoot on sight and have to be careful so we aren't taken for a Japanese soldier. There are a lot of natives on the island, some Korean slaves, Others are Japanese slave labor. They don't think much of Japan and are willing to help with work. We have one or more Japanese bombing raids every night. We had to go to our dugouts twice. I have some Japanese souvenirs, a piece of the wing with the red circle and a piece of fabric from the rudder. Also, rust-colored pieces of parachute. Don't know if it's Japanese or American, as it was by a Japanese Zero and a lot of other American stuff was there. We are supposed to have more raids, according to the Tokyo Rose. January 6th. I stood guard on our plane last night. Japanese are still running loose on the island and are killed whenever seen. They had quite a setup here before we came. Seabees are quite an outfit. They still like the Air Force crews and do a lot for us. January 8th. I installed mosquito net over my cot, so got a good night's sleep. Still no mail. January 9th. I don't sleep well. I guess guards imagine they see Japanese soldiers. Heard 3 Japanese were killed close to where our ship was parked. One day a Japanese soldier was watching the picture show. January 11th. Got 3 letters from you, so I'm happy. Stood guard with Thorson and McIntyre. Got a nice Beluga watch from the government. A nice gift. Our plane is named Beachcomber. Girl's picture painted on it, and I'll put Ruth Ann under my window. Not bad. $400 in the bank now. January 27th. I went on a mission today. Wish I could tell you more. Signs, Oceans of Love. January 29th. There's a short-wave broadcast from USA and just heard the news. Seems strange to listen to news you help make. Things aren't so bad here. No malaria, reptiles, or animals. Food is darn good at times. The boys who fought for this island must have suffered. Makes my heart sink when I pass their resting place. February 2nd. Made tech sergeant. No jungles here. Nearly all sugarcane, banana, and pine trees. Lots of hills with caves where Japanese still hide. Heard some caused trouble the other night. February 5th. We were just told that the news of our bombing was released so we can write about it. Well, yesterday we went to pay the Japanese a visit. We flew our Beachcomber and she purred like a kitten all the way there and back. We bombed Kobe, Japan. That was the strangest feeling I ever had when I saw Japan down there and we had Japanese fighters come at us trying to shoot us down. Then flak burst on all sides of us, which made me pray like I had never prayed before. We were lucky to come home with minor flak damage and no bullet holes. I just sat there watching out my window, sweating this all out, expecting something to hit at any moment. The time we spent over Japan was time that went the slowest in my life. You'll hear the news reports of the damage we did. You can't imagine what a feeling that is to see Japanese fighters with the Japanese rising sun on the wings. The next sweating was on the way back, hoping we make it okay. We are now veterans of actual combat. Everybody was asking how it was, etc. It's a strange feeling to see guys bidding you farewell and wishing you luck before you start, and then being there, seeing you come back and rejoicing you on your safe return. When we got back last night, we had a shot of whiskey, steak dinner, and ice cream waiting for us. I never thought I'd appreciate this piece of ground as much as I did last night when we landed. When we were over Japan, we were all glad to get back over the ocean where it was safer, but the safest was back here. Natives are in the concentration camps. When we go past, we see some running around naked. They are Japanese, Korean, and Comoros? I don't know. February 6th. Tonight I made an ashtray out of a Japanese engine piston. Our ship got some bullet holes in it, besides some flak holes on the Kobe raid Sunday. Ate with Aspinall. Later, went to the beach. He went to the beach and found some nice shells. Saw places where some terrible battles must have taken place, as there are a lot of human bones still lying there. Japanese soldiers, a sickening sight. February 9th. A Japanese soldier was killed the other night by one of our boys on guard in the tent area, about a block from our tent. Japanese are still a threat. We were issued extra ammunition. February 15th. Wrote about Aspinall and Russ Olsen on missions. We got rations, a can of meat, candy, biscuits, dog biscuits, lemon flavor for drinks, cigarettes which I don't smoke, and a stick of gum. Looks like our tent will have electric lights if the war lasts long enough. February 16th. Our mission was the Nagoya raid. It wasn't as bad as the one to Kobe. A lot of fighters were up to shoot us down, but we didn't come as close as before. What a grand feeling to land back here. February 20th. Our third mission over Japan, this time was Tokyo. Not too rough, but some weren't so lucky. 2 were grazed by bullets. I heard that our troops have landed on Iwo Jima. Sounds good. Took pictures as bombs were being dropped and of Mount Fuji. February 23rd. Writing this letter by bright moonlight. Battle at Iwo Jima must be terrible. They'll sure do us a favor taking it. Early March, we flew 15 hours right over the middle of Tokyo yesterday. Had a little flak and no fighter opposition. Our group had every plane scheduled to get in the air to go over target and get back safely. We were complimented by the general for it. Before we take off, we always wonder how many of us will make it and who won't. I guess we really gave them the works. Tokyo was really burned after the March 10th raid. March 14th. We made our mission okay. This time Osaka raid, the one before was Nagoya raid. The last mission was the roughest since the first mission. We really got scared. Our plane was rocking all over the sky just after bombs away. All of us thought that we were hit and the end was coming. You can't imagine a feeling when you think you've been right over Japan. What really happened was that some big arsenal on the ground was hit and the concussion blew us all over. Others felt the same. We had Japanese planes attack us. A terrible feeling to get caught by Japanese searchlights and to be followed. March 16th. Just found out I made Master Sergeant. I'm so tired. Guess it's battle fatigue. March 17th. Our 7th mission over Kobe. Bombers did a lot of damage. A rough mission. Had our commanding officer with us, an old combat veteran, and he said that was the roughest he'd ever seen yet. Air was rough. We had safety belts fastened and could hardly stay put. On the way to the target, a night fighter got on our tail and we outran him. 30 hours without sleep. Now Master Sergeant. March 19th. The 8th mission over Japan. We were plenty scared as we were caught in searchlights for a long time. Target was Nagoya for the 2nd time. Another low bombing. March 28th. Another mission. Landed on Iwo Jima. Heard shots there. Easter Sunday. Went to 6th Bomb Group to see a movie. Coming back, I walked a mile with trees on one side and cane on the other. Cloudy and dark, we could only see 20 feet. Was about as scared as on a mission as I could imagine Japanese soldiers on both sides. Didn't have my pistol. April 4th. An order came out. I'm on the list for receiving the Air Medal. It reads, Air Medal, by direction of the President, for meritorious achievement while participating in historical missions from a base in the Mariana Islands against the homeland of Japan between March 9th, 1945 and March 19th, 1945. During this period, cities on the Japanese islands were struck with such forces and determination that great areas were totally destroyed. Aircraft on each mission attacked their Japanese cities at precedent-shattering low altitudes, introducing new and successful tactics with devastating results. Each flight was made without regard to personal safety in the face of ever-present danger from enemy fighters and the heavy searchlights directed flak. These missions were flown over excessively long ranges through weather that was often adverse and necessitated instrument flying and increased navigational problems. There was ever present the possibility of mechanical failure and failure due to enemy action, necessitating subsequent ditching many miles at sea in hostile waters. The rapid succession allowed a minimum time for rest and recuperation. In spite of weariness and fatigue, physical and mental strain, and the hazardous flying conditions, the individuals listed below displayed courage and skill as to reflect great credit on themselves and the Army Air Forces. April 9th. We were on a mission to Koinoya, Japan. It's clear as the southern end of Japan, close to Skinawa. It was an easy one, but I was scared. The day before, most of our crew were on a mission like that and ran into a lot of opposition. For a while, everybody was saying that Olsen's crew is missing. They and several others had landed at Iwo Jima. I sure was glad to see Olsen at breakfast this morning. We went to bed thinking that Olsen's crew was shut down, and we all lay there twisting and not being able to sleep. Then a guy from Birch's crew came and said they're safe. What a relief. I went right back to sleep and in about an hour woke up to go on a mission. His whole crew is a swell bunch. April 11th, my 13th mission. It was the longest mission that B-29s from here ever went on. We were to meet the rest of the formation over the coast of Japan, but couldn't find them, so we went over the target alone. We were scared but had no opposition and did a wonderful job of bombing. We bombed a chemical plant north of Tokyo at Koriyama. It made tetraethyl fluid that is used in high-octane aviation fuel. We're ahead on missions. April 16th. Finished another mission today, our 14th. This time a town between Tokyo and Yokohama called Kawasaki. We got quite a bit of opposition, but we're lucky to be at the right place at the right time. I think it won't be long till I write from rest camp. April 19th. Going to rest camp, Hawaii tomorrow. Ernie Pyle was killed. April 22nd. Somewhere in Marshall Islands en route to rest camp. Rest camp, nice quarters, good food, fresh milk. From rest camp, went to Hilo, Hawaii, and had a swell time. I stayed with a family named Kinney's, and they are swell. 5 days were spent on the island of Hawaii, Hilo, as guests of Robin and Eileen Kinney, also her mother, Mrs. Kosher. Eileen and her mother came from Utah 29 years earlier, and Robin, a native, was a sugarcane plantation supervisor. Lovely hosts. Good food and lots of sightseeing, stayed in their guest house, returned to Hickam Field, then returned to Tinian via Marshall Islands. May 11th. Arrived here this a.m. I saw that I got another air medal. They came as oak leaf clusters on the air medal ribbon. May 16th. Well, we made our 15th mission okay. We doubt you read and heard about the biggest raid yet over Nagoya. We all thought it would be an awfully tough mission, but it turned out to be not so bad. May 20th. You wondered why I didn't mention where we went on a couple of missions. Well, it was secret then, but now released, so it's okay to write about. We laid mines to sink Japanese ships in the Japanese harbors. It's supposed to do a lot toward ending the war. May 21st. A bunch of us dressed up in khakis and were given rifles and were honorary guards for some of our boys that were buried today. Being there in the cemetery and seeing that row upon row of crosses where boys were buried makes you think what a crazy thing war is. I only wish something would happen and Japan collapses so no more young boys have to give up their lives. May 24th. Sent a Western Union cablegram for our 3rd anniversary. We put in another mission. This time it was Tokyo. The mission target and had to go back on 3 engines. We sure were glad to get back. Hope the good Lord keeps on watching over us. You were thinking that we have to pull 30 mission, but there's a chance of having to pull 35. I guess it depends on how the war goes. Losses and replacements. May 26th. Johnny Wright was killed. His mother from Arkansas spent Christmas with him when we were all in Kearney. May 30th. Clerk from operations came and notified Birch, Ruther, and me that we were going to go for a physical for flight officer rank tomorrow. June 3rd. We were to be in the ranks by 7:15 for the big parade. The whole flight personnel of the 505th participated in the parade. An army band furnished the music. General Davis presented me with an air medal with 2 oak leaf clusters. They each stand for 2 additional presentations of the air medal. I now have received it 3 times. He pinned the medal on me and shook my hand. After the parade, we got the rest, which was a nice box. ribbon, and small pin to be worn on civilian clothes. June 4th, made our 19th mission to Osaka, stopped at Iwo Jima for gas. June 8th, 20th mission, easy one as some flack, but was far away. Missions 21st, 22nd, and 23rd were top secret, mine laying. June 24th, our 24th mission, a rough target but more clouds than usual, so just saw searchlights. Thank God. June 28th, 25th mission, quite uneventful. June 30th, we finished our 26th mission. It was an easy one except for the takeoff. We had a close one of hitting the drink on takeoff last night. I guess the guys on the ground sweated us out and were scared too. Always glad to get some altitude. We put in 8 missions this month. July 2nd, we completed our 27th mission and will be flying again soon. July 4th, we finished our 28th mission this morning. Seems nice. Seems nice to see them adding on as fast as last month. It tires a person out though. The whole outfit was to have a rest tomorrow after polling missions in such fast succession, but it was postponed. At the target we had slight engine trouble but managed to keep going till we got close to here, then decided to stop it and came in on 3. Think you'd like to know that our crew was sent on the long mission yesterday because we've been coming back with lots of gas. An honor to have Major Changala fly with us. July 7th. Another crew had the beach bomber. We went on practice mission with another plane. One oil pressure gauge dropped as we stopped and came back. The last 3 landings were made on only 3 engines. July 2nd. Made our 29th mission. We bombed Wakayama. July 11th. After finishing my 29th mission, I have the air medal with 4 oak leaf clusters. July 13th. Well, the last mission was my 30th. Seems nice to get over the hump. Hope the last 5 are easy missions. July 14th. I had to sign more papers for the rank of flight officer. Lots of red tape. The city we struck yesterday was Suruga. Very few parts of Japan that I haven't been over. July 16th. I forgot to tell you what terrible weather we went through on our last mission on the coast of Japan. I never saw anything like it. Static electricity built up so bad, the whole airplane was like a ball of fire. We had to cross it going in and coming out. July 17th, our 31st mission. July 25th, I finished my 32nd mission yesterday. We dreaded the mission as it was a daylight mission, but turned out okay. We saw some flak and heard some pieces bounce off the bottom of the airplane, but didn't do any damage. Sure glad to leave the mainland. What helped was the clouds over the target. Landed at Iwo Jima for gas. Today I received another oak leaf cluster to the air medal. July 27th. We finished our 33rd mission. We saw a lot of anti-aircraft fire, but none hit us. We landed at Iwo for gas again. July 28th. Didn't fall asleep until late last night due to the commotion going on. Ben Kuroki, who was a Nebraska Japanese soldier from Hershey, Nebraska, left our Kensot and went into Olson's hut. There was a drunk Indian from Oklahoma that called him a dirty Jap and other names. Ben took it as a joke, but guess he meant it. Later, the Indian was cutting some cheese and took the knife and started to cut up Ben. I guess he intended to kill him. He cut Ben's forehead right open. He really bled as they took him to the hospital and had to give him plasma. I guess he wasn't hurt as badly as they first thought. The Indian, nicknamed Chief, was taken to the guardhouse. Our boys are out to do damage to Japan. I suppose you heard about us telling Japan which cities we're going to hit next. Silliest thing we ever heard. Darn Japanese don't deserve that consideration if they don't give up. They didn't tell us about Pearl Harbor or about balloon bombs either. August 2nd. No, I don't have 34 missions. We took off beautifully. Flew about 30 minutes and an engine failed. The whole airplane vibrated and was losing a lot of oil, so we feathered it and came back. We sure hated to, as the target didn't appear to be rough. Also, the takeoff is quite a bit of the mission. So, especially so with the big loads we take. That was the first time we took off and turned back. August 6th. Well, I finished my 34th mission this morning. We had a long mission yesterday and this morning. We landed at Iwo for gas. Guess we had a lot of guys worried that we went down over the target, as those that landed at Iwo didn't see us there. We landed a lot later. August 7th. My flight officer rank finally came back through. I'm now an officer in the U.S. Army, something I hoped I could be ever since I got into the Army. Today is included among some of the great days in my life. It all took place at about 4 p.m. Colonel Eisenhart presided. He is now Group CO, and Major Gibson is our Squadron CO. After the ceremony, we were all congratulated by the executive officers, then got our orders. Major Gibson pinned on my bars and insignias. We had to furnish our own to Lieutenant Townsend. Lieutenant Garr and Captain McIntyre helped to furnish mine. Sure nice of them. I've been busy shaking hands, etc. Townsend said he was glad for my sake and for you. I added, and for our children when they are old enough to understand. August 8th. Being an officer is quite a change. We have lots of advantages. The officers here are swell. August 9th. Found out definitely that I got the Distinguished Flying Cross. Also have 4 oak leaf clusters to the Air Medal and recommended for the Presidential Citation and recommended again for the Distinguished Flying Cross. August 11th. Heard the good news about Japan being willing to surrender. Sure sounded good. We're hoping we accept the terms about Japan keeping the Emperor. August 13th. The peace terms between Japan and United States sure keep us in suspense. We're scheduled for our 35th mission, and we're hoping the end comes before we take off, but it doesn't look like it. Being an officer in the U.S. Army is quite a difference than an enlisted man. I'm glad I never got in any trouble that would have kept me from getting it. I'll try to stay on the straight and narrow path. I feel that Dixie and any other children we have will be proud that I was an officer in this war. Don't you think? I'm glad I'm in the best squadron and group in the Air Force. Our COs are swell officers. Sure glad to hear Russia joined us against Japan. August 14th. I'm through with my missions. Just got back from my 35th mission. Quite a relief to be through. I'm so tired I can't even realize what it means to be through. The mission was easy. It was a daylight raid and Japan was the clearest I've seen it yet. Saw lots of Japan. Perhaps the last time, but I don't mind. August 16th. The war is over. What a grand and glorious feeling. On our last mission, we flew over Hiroshima to see the devastation of the atomic bomb, all flattened. And that's how he got anemia, was by flying over, all this radiation. Yeah, it's, quite jarring. Coming home. After about 10 days on Saipan waiting to board ship for my return home, I finally received word that I was to start my journey. It was a freighter converted to a troop ship. It had some cabins on the top deck to accommodate the officers. The enlisted men were below, and what a steamy, smelly place. I felt fortunate to be in a cabin. My only duty was to serve soda pop to the officers at break time each afternoon on the deck. At the end of the voyage, I was asked to take up a collection from the officers to tip the crew. The trip home lasted about 3 weeks. To my amazement, I didn't get seasick. We landed at San Pedro, California, and saw sick troops unloaded at the dock. Saw stretcher cases with masks covering their mouths. We were told that they were prisoners of war that had contracted tuberculosis in captivity. Next was the train ship to Fort Leavenworth, where Ruth and Dixie were waiting for me. I agreed to re-enlist for 3 more years, but when I was told that I might have to go back overseas, I said flatly, tear up the form. I was glad to be home with Ruth and Dixie to stay. Later that fall, Eastern Airlines asked me to fly for them as an engineer, but I decided not to accept their offer. Signed, Richard Maresh. And this is a letter from Congress. It says, Dear Richard Maresh, in reading a recent issue of the Geneva Signal, I noticed that your husband, Master Sergeant, this is written to my grandma, Richard Maresh has been awarded the Air Medal for Meritorious Achievement. That is certainly a fine recognition that has come to him, and I'm sure that he deserves it. I hope that everything goes well for him and that he will get back safe and sound. Please convey my greetings to him when you write. Personal greetings, I am. That was by Carl Curtis, the 1st District of Nebraska. So, representative wrote to my grandma saying thank you. Yeah, so, I know that was a lot. It's just, these are his letters he sent to my great grandma, and that's what war is like. That's what war does to people. And I'm really glad that he had this saved, and that we're able to read it today and think, like, do we want to go to war? War is different nowadays, I know, but it's still not pretty. And I'm not remembering my great grandfather for his, meritorious achievement. That's not, in my opinion, that's not what he deserves to be remembered by either. As a war fighter, I would like to instead remember him as, a senator and legislator who did a lot for Nebraska for rural healthcare and, really fought for education and as well as for his country, for freedom. And I'm thankful that I have a source of inspiration like that in my family. It drives me to, also fight for freedom. And, yeah, it's, I'm not a war fighter. I hope to never go to war. I don't believe I ever will go to war, and, I hope you never will either. It's rough out there. Thanks for listening. Thank you, to my family. What a time. What a time. That was 80 years ago.